All right, I think we can get started. Just to introduce myself, I am Fahan. I'm the technical trainer here in the Nordic countries. Usually my daily work consists of giving you guys hands-on training over here in our beautiful training room here in Denmark. But unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 situation, we are quite limited in order to provide proper hands-on training for you guys. So that's why we are doing more and more of all these webinars. And next year, we are going to continue on doing all these webinars. We have one last webinar after today. That's on Monday. That's going to be on AI products, how advanced surveillance can make you sleep better at night. So if you didn't sign up for that one, please sign up. That's on Monday at 9:30, same place, same time. So apart from doing the hands-on training, I also prepare these webinars. I also do events usually, but obviously we don't do that many events right now, again, due to the situation. Another part of my job consists of testing a lot of different devices to make sure that whatever we are promising, we are actually also able to deliver. So it's kind of like a two-way thing. So I spend a lot of time testing out products and seeing what I think makes sense for our market over here in the Nordic countries, and collect a lot of feedback from you guys as well in terms of what could we do better, which topics are more interesting for you guys, because obviously technology never stands still. So it keeps on developing, but at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we capture those opportunities that we have out there in the market. So today, the topic for today is DSS Pro V8 platform, comprehensive and expandable VMS, which is the latest VMS version that we have, V8. It's quite new to me as well. So I don't know all the functions yet, but I have already seen a lot of beautiful things that you can definitely make use of out there on the solutions that you're building. So with DSS V8, which is the latest one, will be released in between March and April. So this is just going to be kind of a warm-up. So in terms of the hands-on, I'm only going to go through the elementary steps of it. But it should give you kind of an overview of what we're doing and what we're working on, so you guys can prepare those projects for DSS V8 as well. So has anybody worked with any of our DSS products yet? Okay, I guess not. During the webinar, if any of you guys have any questions, there's like one question per person. Not anymore. No, obviously, you're free to ask as many questions as you have. I'm going to try to answer them to my best extent. If I don't have the answer, I'm going to write it down and get back to you guys. So go ahead, ask all the questions you need, because at the end of the day, you guys need to feel comfortable about this before we continue on trying to sell these products. If you're not confident about it, it's not going to be easy for you to build confidence at the customers, right? So let's go to the agenda. Product selection. What do I need? That's obviously the most important part. When do I need a VMS? When can I do with an NVR? When is it good enough? Possibilities, available solutions with DSS. What other possibilities does it give me apart from the NVR as well? Special highlight functions. Elementary setup. How do we add devices? How do we add a map? Creating users. Playback. Which playback functions do we have? How do we search for specific events, etc., etc. And then obviously decrease your search time with DSS, playback, thumbnail search, object filtering. And then I'm gonna talk a little bit about DSS Event Center, making sure that you understand how to use DSS in terms of getting different alarm types, different event types into DSS and pushing it out to specific users who needs to stay alert and actually take action on some of these different events that pop up maybe at specific periods of time. And then I'm going to talk about the licensing, so you understand completely how the licensing structure is. So when you want to order it, you're completely clear about how it needs to be done and what do I get and how do I add on different types of licenses if I just bought a smaller license package and then I want to extend it. So that's kind of the agenda for today. And then there's also going to be a small Q&A session if you guys still have some questions you want me to go through, or if there is some parts that I didn't go through thoroughly enough, just go ahead and ask me, and I'll be happy to try to go through it again. So, in terms of the product selection, one of the main things with DSS and DSS Express and Pro is that DSS and Express compared to Smart PSS. Is there anybody who knows Smart PSS quite well and has been happy with it? Okay. Great. So what is the advantage of using DSS Express or comparing it to an NVR? The main difference in using one of these two products is compared to using Smart PSS or an NVR is that those are completely client softwares. So you only have the possibility to adjust some stuff in the devices, but if you want to have multiple users, you're not able to do that. So that is one of the bigger differences in using a VMS compared to just the client software. So let's assume that I want a couple of people added to some of these devices. Let's assume these people should be allowed to monitor some of these devices. That's only possible when I use a VMS, not with Smart PSS. Then you would have to install Smart PSS on each person's computer, and then you would have to export the list from the first person who adds the devices, and then they have to import it. So whenever there is a device change in terms of adding another device, then you have to export and import that to the other clients. So this is different with DSS Express. DSS Express works kind of like a client and a server at the same time. If you're used to using Smart PSS in terms of just connecting to your devices, that could be P2P devices. That could also be by port forwarding or any other way, and just making sure that you know whatever is happening, which one is online, which one is offline. You can do that just as you were doing with Smart PSS. You can open up all the different views you want to. You can create special customized views and add map functions. A lot of these things are common in DSS Express. The main difference is, as I said, that you are able to set up client users. So what do you get in the free package? DSS Express has a free package which consists of 64 video channels. So no licensing for that if you're only using 64 channels. There are a couple of limitations in terms of how many client users you have and so on and so on. But if you go into into our website, you can install DSS Express, and then you'll be able to see which things you're allowed to do. Also, I have a general table that I'm going to show you later on to show you the different functions, what you get when you only use the free version, what you get when you pay for it, what you get when you use DSS Pro compared to Express. So there's a complete comparison chart. So with DSS Express, one of the main differences compared to DSS Pro is that we have a limit of 256 channels. So whenever we exceed that amount of channels, then we have to turn to DSS Pro V8. So one of the better things that we have done in DSS Pro V8 is that you can actually merge from DSS Express and upgrade to DSS Pro. So you don't have to uninstall everything, start from scratch, and then start building up. And in terms of the licensing fee, it's quite simple. You only pay the difference from the DSS Express license price and DSS Pro V8 license price. So that's going to be a very easy transition for you guys. If you're thinking of building a smaller system and all of a sudden it turns out to become a bigger solution than you had expected, no worries. If you started off with Express, you can always upgrade to V8. So also, you have the possibility, if you have multiple sites where you have DSS Express, you can keep them as running as junior versions compared to DSS Pro so that they can work together. So you don't have to just split everything apart and then start over again. So generally, DSS Express is for medium-sized businesses, not huge solutions, which needs to have cascading and so on and so on. When we go to DSS Pro V8, one of the bigger advantages is that you have the possibility to scale them much bigger. So that means you can add lots of more channels. So each server can handle up to 2,000 channels depending on the bandwidth, and that is exactly the same with DSS Express. Everything is depending on the amount of bandwidth you're using. So if you're using 8 megapixel, 12 megapixel cameras, then don't expect that you could add 2,000 channels to a DSS Express or DSS Pro V8 server, because there's a limit with the bandwidth. So that is the possibility if you have a lower resolution to have 2,000 channels. If you build up a bigger solution where you have sub-servers, kind of like slave servers and master servers, you can have a system all the way up to 20,000 channels. And also for VDP and access control, you also have plenty of channels, nothing to worry about. With DSS Express, if you have a bigger access control system you're thinking of building, then maybe you should already consider switching over to DSS Pro. So apart from that, you also have some other features like business analysis, which you don't get in DSS Express, which gives you the possibility to manage stores in terms of checking up on the flow of people that are coming in and going out. Which type of people do we have? There's a lot of different analytics that follow with the BI module. You can also, in this situation, for instance, that we are in, we can also trigger stuff like people count. If we have an exceeded amount of people, then we would like to have something triggering on some of our digital signage products, for instance. DSS Pro V8, the BI module is built for some of that as well. So that's kind of the main differences. If you're already thinking of a bigger project, you should already consider DSS Pro V8. So what did we do different from the previous version, DSS Pro V7, or what to say? Let's look at some of the differences that have been previously on the V7 DSS Pro. One part is that when you install DSS Express, then you install kind of like, it looks like a client. It's a VMS software. Whenever you want to configure something, it's within that same software that you're configuring everything, and that's also the same software that your client users are going to use. So kind of like client and VMS, it's all in one. With the DSS Pro V7, what the difference is compared to V8 is that when you wanted to configure something with V7, then you would have to go into a website once you've installed the server. Then you would have to do all the configuration more or less web-based, and the user interface from the web-based and the client-based part was quite far apart. So we changed that in V8. What we did is we used the same way of structurizing like we did with DSS Express from the beginning, where we actually had a software where everything looks similar. So you can configure and use it as a client more or less the same way, so you won't feel any difference. So that makes it a little bit more comprehensive, simpler than the V7. So when do I need a VMS? When the system needs to be monitored from different locations. We have client users if there is large-scale systems. If you want to have multiple people like guards, or that could be a lot of different things. Companies that have lots of branches where they want to be able to see vice versa cameras from one location to another. That's very user-friendly in the VMS part. When you want to have somebody getting alarms in terms of using it as a monitoring station, if you want to have one person monitoring a lot of different departments, in that way you can generate a lot of event alarms in one location without having to have individual clients and setting up everything from there. So apart from that, you also get a lot of different advanced search possibilities compared to an NVR, because obviously our NVRs are working great. We are selling lots of these NVRs because they are great in terms of playback, recording, searches. We have a lot of features, but sometimes it would be easier that we just had everything in one platform for all those solutions that we had out there. And last but not least, remote management in terms of triggering doors, opening doors on different locations, opening barriers for ANPR cameras, so on and so on. So that's the main reason why you would choose a VMS. And obviously, which I forgot to add, is you can keep on scaling it. You don't have a limitation like you would have in an NVR. If you have maxed out this NVR, then you just have to add another NVR and another NVR. With the then you have completely separated small systems running. When you're using a VMS, you can just scale up those slave servers, and then you could just keep on adding, but still managing everything from the master perspective. So apart from that, you also have stuff like failover systems, N+M system. We're going to go through some of that afterwards. So let's look at the product selection, the requirements for the servers. This is based only on DSS Pro V8 because that was my main focus for this webinar. So minimum requirements, as you can see to the left, max recommended requirements to the right. So obviously there's a big difference. If you're already planning a bigger solutions, or generally go with the recommended, that's what I would say, definitely. When we go over to that was the server part just before, then we have the client side of it. Obviously, we have to pay attention to the GPU, because when we are using clients, the GPU has to be strong, because the most resources that are going to be required from a client PC that's running is the GPU, because the more cameras you are monitoring at the same time, the more resources, the more pressure it's going to feel. There's nothing pressuring, or I would say video surveillance is one of the types of data which applies the most pressure to clients, or PCs, than more or less any other type of, or that could also be gaming, but gaming also consists of a lot of graphics. So that's one of the reasons why it requires a lot of resources as well for gaming as for video surveillance. So that's the recommended client sizes. Then when you want to install the client, it's actually quite simple. If you have installed the server side of it, and if anybody wants to try out some of this, there is actually a lot of different Windows versions you can run the V8 on. I think I have a chart where you can see all the data sheet where it says all the Windows version it supports. So it does support Windows Server, the latest version of Windows Server, or Windows 10 as well it supports. So, but you can see that in the data sheet. Yes, Xeon CPU was recommended, yeah. On the whenever you want to install the client side of it, it's quite simple. Once you have installed the server side, then you actually just log in from the clients directly to that IP address. Once you are logged on to that IP address, then you can actually download the software directly from the web page of the server. And also you get the possibilities to see which mobile client does it use as well. I'm going to show you in a minute. And last but not least, there's also a user manual up here in the right corner. So that makes it very simple. That's the only thing that's web-based. Rest of it is all based on the program when you run it. Then we have the app. The app for DSS Pro is the DSS Agile, which keeps on developing, keeps on adding more and more features. I definitely think that this is an awesome application compared to which possibilities it gives you in terms of, for instance, stuff like video surveillance, the regular video surveillance we know, but what about object detection? You have the possibility to do filtered search for only specific objects. You have the possibility to control the access control side of it. So if you have a lot of doors, a lot of different users, you can always go in and have a look on each person, each user, where have they been the last time. There's a complete more or less log in there on each user. You can also remotely unlock directly if you have the credentials for it. You can do that directly from the app. And then there's going to be plenty of more stuff added to it. Another part of it is stuff like passenger flow. You have the possibility to see, let's assume you're a shop owner and you just want to have a quick look about how many people came in the shop today and at which hours. So instead of having to open up the client on his PC, he can just do it from the mobile client. Very simple, very easy, and then check the flow analysis of his shop. So that it's always at hand, because obviously the more these features are at hand, the more we're going to use them. And then at the end of the day, when we're talking about people counting, we have a safety perspective nowadays, or a health safety perspective, that we want to make sure that we don't allow too many people in our shop. Yes, right now it's approximately Christmas, so obviously there's going to be a lot of Christmas shopping. This is also where it's important. For instance, in Denmark, we have a lot of restrictions in terms of how many people are allowed in the shops. Now, more or less, most of the shops are going to close due to the government decision, in order to control this pandemic spreading. So, but in the end of the day, it's important that you have all these type of information about the passenger flow in your shop, so that could be anywhere at hand. So, as I said, lots of more features are being developed as we speak. So this is just some part of it. So let's try to go to the elementary setup, how it looks like when we want to go into the server side of it. Close this guy down. This is how the DSS V8 looks. It looks quite different from the V7. Um, So let's try to do the most elementary steps. Is how do I add some devices? How do I add them to a map? How do I play back? How do I create users? How do I access the log file, etc.? So the first thing I'm going to do is, on our main window, what we see is we have a monitoring center. The monitoring center is an awesome feature. I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes after we add some devices. That gives you a great overview of more or less everything that you're doing at once, and also gives you possibilities to do some types of playback. Event center, obviously, when you want to get all those different alarms popping in, you want to have a record of them. You want to search on when were there a person coming in at a certain door which triggered an alarm. Do we have some comments on that? Investigation center are quite new and quite a heavy task for the VMS, which gives you possibilities to collect a lot of different information. That could be pictures you would be finding on the internet of suspects, and so on, and add them, link them together with different event alarms, also event recordings, and kind of create a complete like file on a specific incident. Maintenance center, where it actually tells us how our platform is running, the status of it, and so on and so on. So, second, got a phone call. All right. So the first thing is we click on the left side of it. Everything is divided very, very simply. On the left side of it, in the bottom, we have the. I hope all of you guys can see everything here, instead of just me speaking to you guys where without you seeing it. Could you all guys see the VMS running? Okay, great. So on the left side in the bottom, there's a small tool. When you have the tool, you click that one. That's where you configure everything. And on top of that, this is where you actually get to do all the searches, monitoring, analysis, and where you see all the different types of add-ons you can have. So when we go to the first part of it, the basic configuration is the resources, where we want to add devices. So I'm going to click that one. Then I can go ahead and click search up here on the right side of it. Then it's going to be doing a search on all the products that I have. There we go, all the different types of products that I have connected. So let me just try to click that one. And let's click that one as well. So once that's done, I just click. And then I'm going to add the password for those devices. Okay. I think I just forgot to click it like that up there. But anyway, so now that device is added. I can go back from my search window. I can go back to all the devices. I was just a little bit too quick there. And then I can do a new search up here, and now I can see that one of the devices that I added is added to my list up here. So another way of adding a device is I could just click add, and in this V8 feature, which is a amazing feature, which I had hoped that was possible, is that you can add devices directly by P2P. So I assume that's going to help out a lot of you guys. Is there anyone who's using P2P nowadays for all the connections for the customers? Great. So you're going to love V8 as well for that. So over here, we can choose which type of device are we using. Do we want to use an UNVIF protocol? It's supported as well in V8. Type in the IP address, password, username, password, which route do you want to add it to, if you have any specific route you've added to, and then you just add it, and that's it. So nothing more to do, very simple. So once we have added the device, over here, we can choose which type of analytics do we want to use for this product. What's important is that we get the possibility what's important is that we make sure that whatever feature we want to use is enabled out there in the camera. If it's not enabled in the camera, then that feature is not going to be possible to use in the VMS part. So once I've clicked that button up there, I can go over here in the video channel part, and then over here, since I had already enabled the face detection from the camera, I can see that everything is already added here. So if it did not get all the data, all the information, you can click get info, and then you'll get all the information that's already been added, the name, and etc., etc. So for instance, if you change the name from the NVR or directly from the camera, or the NVR where this camera might be connected to, or directly from the camera, it's not going to be synchronized immediately. Then you'd have to go into the device and click the get info button. Then it's going to synchronize the information and it will be updated. So if I wanted to use this camera for other purposes, since this one supports IVS, the perimeter protection, face detection, heat mapping, and a lot of other features as well, I have to go in here, electrical focus, and then I have to enable all those features, whichever I want to use. So for instance, I could also use this one for people counting. So once I've added this to people counting, I'm going to be able to see it in my flow analysis in the VMS. So if I haven't added it, or if I'm not using it, then I would rather just keep it as the feature that I'm using right now. So this is important. So if you don't find that, for instance, once you go to the face recognition part, and if you can't find it in the VMS in the list, that might be the reason, because you didn't add it as a camera over here for face detection or face recognition. So this is important. Or let's assume you have added an NVR over here. By default, whenever you add an NVR, it only adds the channels, and those are only the channels that you're paying for, the ones that are connected with cameras. So if you only have like 3 channels, and it's or in this case 32 channel, and I'm only using 8 channels, I'm only gonna be having to add 8 video licenses. So if I'm increasing the amount of cameras that I added to my NVR, for instance, then I would have to click the get info button again, and then it's gonna update the information, and I'm gonna get all those new cameras added to it as well. So that's kind of how you add the different devices. In here, you can also name the different inputs and outputs. If you want to add them to a map, it makes it much easier for you guys to distinguish it. Or outputs, for instance. Down here in the configuration part, I can go in and configure the individual types of devices. So let me try to go into the AI NVR that I have already. I can go ahead and do a device configuration of the individual cameras that I have. then I can control all the lighting conditions over here, the regular settings, and also I can control the encoding settings. And when I'm changing some of this stuff, this is completely synchronized with the server, with the NVR. So everything I do over here, it applies to the NVR as well, or the overlay, whichever I want to change. So let's assume I want to go in and do some configuration on the individual camera. Then I click whichever camera I want to. I can choose a record plan on the device or on the server side. I can control that from here. I can go ahead and add events. This part only applies to whichever events I want to get triggered from the VMS side of it. So this has nothing to do with the NVR in itself. So then over here, I can choose which type of recording do I want to have. Do I want to only have general or also alarm video recording over here? In here, I can choose whichever type and the retention time as well. And then we are talking about the storage on the VMS side of it. So if I want to set the retention time on the NVR, I have to do it directly from the NVR. So this is how I configure the individual camera. Let's go out now that we have added some camera to it. In here, if I want to use DSS in terms of storage, that could be, there are usually 3 types of storage. This is a beta version that I'm running, so this is not a final release version. So over here, I have the possibility to add net disks. Net disk is usually network-based disks. That could be a network's storage server I could add here, or I could use the local disks directly in the server side of it. So I'm just running the server on my laptop right now, so that only has 1 spare disk. And I'm using this disk for the ANPR part of it. I can choose whichever type of feature I want to use this disk for. I cannot divide this disk to use it for multiple purposes. So obviously, video surveillance, if I want to record all those different events directly in the platform, like the alarm events and stuff, I have to have video storage in my VMS. If I just want to capture the ANPR pictures whenever the cars are coming in, the number plates and everything, I have to use the ANPR picture. That's what I'm doing right now. Face and alarm pictures, that could be whenever there is a face detection or metadata detection, like a person and the appearance of him. You're going to be seeing that my pictures are going to be missing right here because I don't have the face alarm storage on my VMS right here. And then the incident file as well, that goes for the investigation center. So this is how you set up the storage part of it. You can divide the storage as well over here. Once you have all your disks, you can divide them to individual servers as well, or allocate specific disk space for specific channels from here. So that was the storage part of it. Then you have let's try to go to the live view of it and see how it looks in the live view. Then I go to this part of it because this was the configuration. Then I'm going to go to this part, video surveillance. And then over here, I can choose, this is not any different more or less from Smart PSS, I guess. This is quite simple and standard for many VMSs as well. And then I'm just going to click and pull the NVR out here. And then I'm going to get all those pictures from the different cameras. So I'm not sure if I have a camera running on that one. So this is the way to do it. Very, very simple. Here you can see I'm sitting in my training room with plenty of different devices. We have the people counting camera. We have different types of cameras connected here. We are doing some mass detection as well. So in terms of whenever we are using this part, it's quite important that we correct the settings in terms of when do we want them to pop up in mainstream or substream. So I'm just going to go out here to my home button, my local settings. And then in here, I can choose whichever type. There's a lot of different settings out here. The default split, for instance, I could choose a 9 split. Stream type, whenever the stream type exceeds 4 splits, in my opinion, then I would want it to go to substream. This is going to take off a lot of pressure off the client. So this is important for you guys to remember. Make sure to limit this as much as possible and explain this to your customers, because the more pressure you're putting on it, because if I'm running a 9 split in mainstream, I'm not going to be able to tell the difference if it's a 2 megapixel or 4 or 8 megapixel. I might be able to, but the regular client might not be able to tell the difference from it. But once he double clicks it, he wants that to be in the best quality whatsoever. So this is where you make sure to limit it so that it's only a 4 channel that is going to be showing 4 or full size image that's going to be showing in the full resolution. Whenever you exceed that, then it's going to go to the sub part. We can choose the CPU pressure as well whenever it needs to notify us, instant playback time, and so on and so on. Double click and maximize window and switch to mainstream, and I would love to do that. There we go. Yeah, we just save it. So I'm just gonna pull out my cameras again. And then it switches to mainstream. You can see my small little totem that I'm using for a lot of different testing. So I can create my customized splits, just like I used to do in Smart PSS. I can choose however I want to do them, the size of them. I already created one over here, for instance. This one was actually meant for the map. So this is how it looks like. So let's try to go over to the to some more of the configuration part. This was the live view, yes. So up here in the left side, what you have is you can choose whichever type of live view you want to find. If you are only doing the live view for the ANPR or face recognition cameras or video metadata cameras, then you can choose over here. And then you're going to have all that metadata coming up and going in and out. I'll show you in the monitoring center afterwards. So once we have added some devices, we would love to have a map where we could add some of those devices. So I'm going to go back to my configuration. I'm going to tap the map button. So in here, I can configure the longitude and latitude and the zoom factor of how much I want the map to zoom in from the starting position. So when I double click this map, I get the Google Maps over Denmark. So that was my starting map. Then I can also add multiple different smaller maps that I can always add to my view afterwards when I want to have like the live view and stuff. I also have the possibilities once I go in here, I can go and add my different devices. Let's just try to zoom in and add a couple of these devices. I think I added this one. I'm gonna add this PTZ camera over here. And then I can also add the alarm inputs. Let's assume I had a door or something or a gate over here somewhere. Then I could add in the alarm inputs because they're gonna be flashing on my map afterwards. So this is just the camera side of it. I can also go ahead and add a child map over here, up in the right corner, IKEA. Then I could choose to add a map. Once I've added the map, click OK, double click the map, add in an NVR, for instance. Oh, I already added that to another map, so I'm not able to add any of these devices. So let's just add this ANPR, for instance. And that's it. We're done. Let's assume I already have this map, for instance. I've already added all of this. This is our office. So if I want to move something, I could just click the move button and just move it around. I can also just select multiple devices. Then I have all the devices that I want to see. So this is the map function, how I add the devices to the map. Let me try to go back to my view up here in the surveillance part. I can also, let's assume I wanted to create my, I already had this customized split. Then I can drag my map over here. DH office map, for instance. And then I could add my different devices up here. Let's just do it like this, and then I'm gonna delete this one. Add this one up here, and then add my map up here. So I can always, let's assume I had a bigger map and I just had the most important cameras, and there would be lots of more cameras over here. Then I could always just click the individual and then just open up the video. And then it's gonna open up the video up here, over here. So this was the map function. Very, very easy to use. If you have a bigger installation, this is definitely going to make a difference for you. So let's go back now to how to do some stuff like the playback part. So which different possibilities do we have? When we do a simple playback, we go into the video search, and then in here, we can choose, let's assume I want to see the recording from some of these cameras. I can't see any recording from these cameras because I don't have any local storage from my server side. But what I do have is I have an NVR connected, which is storing the data from all these cameras. So I'm just gonna choose, for instance, this camera. And then I'm gonna click down here in the bottom. This is very important once you sit and try it out, that you choose which type of storage are you searching from. And I'm searching for the store on device. That means the NVR. Choose the date and time and do a search. Then I have all my recordings over here. That's just a little bit too early. There we go. We have our recordings. Zoom in and out. If I want to do a backup, very, very simple. I could just click over here on the scissors. There you go. Start. Stop. Add in the password, which is required. Click OK. Then it asks me, do you want to start the backup from exactly this time to this time? No, maybe I would rather just start a minute before. Then I could just choose that. So now I added it so it was supposed to do a backup a minute before where I chose. I can also choose to transcode it directly to which type. That could be an MP4 or AVI format. Generally, if it's not a significant recording, if it's not a like severe case or anything, then I would not choose to use the conversion, the transcoding, because if we are not using the transcoding, we'll get the backup in the raw format, in the DAV format. So when I'm saying the raw format, this is also where we get to be able to do stuff like watermark testings from our smart player in the toolbox, so we can verify the authenticity of this recording, so that we can prove that nobody tampered with this video. So I'm gonna do a backup. It's supposed to take a long time, but this is how it looks like. Another way of doing a backup is even smarter. Let's assume you have multiple cameras. You want to do a backup of them at the same time. Then let's start by choosing the NVR. Choose this camera, this camera, this camera, and this camera and that camera. All right, let's do a search. So then I get all the timelines of these different cameras. So then I can just go ahead and click in all of these, and then just choose to when the starting point and the ending point for my backup, from there to there. Type in the password. Yes, I'm happy with the time, starting and ending time. There we go, and then it starts doing the backup. So this is so much more user-friendly than any other way of doing it. So, or I could also just choose some specific cameras where I wanted to do that. Then let's do another one. There we go. So it's that simple whenever you want to do a backup. And let's assume you're storing on the server and you're adding a lot of different bookmarks. Then you'd be able to see all those bookmarks over here, depending on which cameras you are choosing to search from. So obviously you have to have storage set up on the server side. Then you'd be able to see all those tags that you have added, the bookmarks, and you could just click them and do a backup, and that's it. You can also do them based on different events. Like if you want to do them file by file, then you have the possibility to choose whichever channel, and then you could do a search from that one, and then just click on the separated events, so that you're not recording from a time-based frame, you're recording from a event perspective. So this is an amazing way of doing backup. You guys can see how comprehensive, how simple this is, right? How easy and user-friendly it is to do different backups from different cameras. And this could also be across from different locations. So this doesn't have to be just from one NVR. That could be from multiple NVRs. Let's do a backup of 9 o'clock from all the entrances on all our different branches. So that's going to be very easy. Just click this separated cameras from the different branches, and then you have it. So that was the download center of it. When we are doing our playback part, and there you see I have the possibility to click that one. This was one backup I made where it was already transcoded. And there we have the different recordings of them. So whenever we are doing a search over here, we also have different possibilities. We can do the filtering playback, the smart search playback. I can click over here, then I can do a search, and then it's gonna find all those recordings where I have movement in that specific area. So it's still doing the search. Maybe there's too much movement. It's gonna take a little bit of time. Maybe we should just choose one of the other cameras. Let me try this one, for instance. That's great. We don't have as much movement over there. There we go. Click the search. And then now it's done searching, then I could zoom in. I can zoom in and see it. All the searched and important recordings are here directly in the purple part of it. That's my search recordings. So I can just click play, and then it's gonna jump from one event to another event all the time, directly from where all the purple stuff is. So obviously some part of these are not that big. That's why it's looking as if it's playing the green part of it. So this is how easily I can go ahead and do the playbacks. Obviously, this is where the light is changing. There we have it. So that's another way of doing a search. And let me try to go exit my search over here. I also have the possibility, if I'm using specific types of recordings, then I can choose whichever I want to play back over here. So we have another feature called thumbnail search. I also have a video of it, so it shows it even in a better way. But let me try to show you what thumbnail search is. This one definitely narrows down the search time it's going to take for you guys to find a specific event, or let's assume somebody damaged the gate from the exit. Some car crashed into the gate and left, but nobody knows what happened and how it happened. Or somebody dropped a wallet, or somebody removed a pallet. That could be anything. So I'm just gonna go ahead and show you guys when I choose this one from the PDZ, from the device storage. Once I've clicked the thumbnail search here, I'm just gonna move it a little bit further so you guys can see what I'm gonna try to search for. Over here, there are a couple of boxes, all right? So I wanna figure out when these were moved. So that could be a time span of a full day, no issues. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna limit the area from when I want to see the differences, so it's a little bit easier once I do the thumbnails. So it's only gonna be focusing on this area when I look for the searches. So once I'm happy with that, I'm just gonna click this button. So the time frame is already the full time frame from today. So then it's going to show me snapshots of each of them, and down here in the time frame I can see which snapshot belongs to which time frame. And now you can see by these two pictures, this is exactly between this time frame that the suitcases were moved, right? So, and I can locate the time that it's 8:39 and this one is 9:05. So there's a gap of between 25 minutes. So I'm just going to double click it, and then it's just going to open up more and more windows, and I can tell that this is approximately, I can tell that I'm storing too many things on my laptop. Just try to find those and delete those different recordings that I had. I have some storage issues, sorry. Okay, so now over here, I can see that the time frame between each frame has been narrowed down to approximately 2 minutes now. So I could just go ahead and play that one back. But if I want to narrow it even further down, I just double click it. And now I know it's exactly between a couple of these frames that this happened, that somebody moved them. And guess who that somebody might be? So then I'm gonna do the playback over here. So there you see it. So it's that easy once we start moving stuff to locate it. So when you can narrow down the search time for any type of event like this, it was a matter of what, a minute it took me to find out exactly when those were moved. So that could be anything, any type of event you wanted to search for. So the thumbnail feature really does make it very simple and easy for you guys to find the specific area. So that was one of the setups. Then we have the requirement to create users. So how do we create users? We go down to the configuration part of it, click users. Then we can define roles. Roles, obviously, if you have lots of users, you would define different roles. That could be a manager role. And if you already have some specific roles set up, you can copy some of the features from them. Then you could choose which devices should this manager be allowed to control. That could be those two because they were in one location. I could have divided them in different routes, so it would be easier to define the different branches for this company. And which features should he be able to do a playback on. Let's just choose to have live view and playback recorded. And then we have the menus. Which menus should be visible for this guy to see? So the basic configuration, maybe not, because he doesn't need to configure anything. The surveillance is important. Search is important for him. If we have a BI module, for instance, we can go ahead and add that, and then that person is allowed to have these features. So now we define our role, and now we create the user. Like any other system, it's very simple. You can import those domain users because DSS v8 supports Active Directory as well. Add in, type in username, password, email, so on and so on. Multiple point of presence. If that person is an administrator, sometimes it might be important for him to be able to log in at multiple places at the same time. So, but for regular users, I wouldn't recommend it because we want to make sure that one person is using the login at the time, so it's easier for us to prove if something happens, somebody misused the system. We can lock them to MAC addresses, specific MAC addresses for each user to make it even more secure. And since we have already defined what to say the role, we just choose the manager, and then we already have the credentials set up for that, or the possibilities for that person. So that's it. That's how you add in the users. An important feature to know as well for the basic use of it is how to use the log feature. In the log part of it, which is to the right side, we have a lot of different, quick ways of going into the log, the help, the user manual is here. So over here, I can choose whichever type of log am I searching for. I want to search for everything today, for instance. And there we get everything. And over here, I can also go ahead and see on the log even which user was it and what was he doing. He was doing a playback on this camera. He was doing a playback on this camera from that specific timeline. So, and which IP address. So this makes it very, very easy to do the search. Or if it's a device we want to do a search on, now I didn't do any changes to it, to any of these devices, but here I would be able to see the log file for the specific device. So that's kind of, I would say, the basic elementary setup that you would need. Then let's try to go back to the PowerPoint, and I'm going to show you a couple of more things from the highlights and the features of it. Does anybody have any questions in terms of the elementary setup? Some things that you thought were elementary that I didn't go through? Okay, I guess not. Then let's continue. When we want to use, for instance, the DSS Event Center, this is where we can set up different alarms. So let me just try to go ahead and set up a specific alarm for you guys to see. So I'm going to go over and show you how to set up a specific alarm from a specific device. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to go ahead into my configuration part, the resources, and then I'm going to choose this camera, for instance, and I'm just going to choose motion detection, for instance. Well, let's just try with motion detection. Event information. Then I could choose motion detection, or if I had set up IVS, I could also choose some of these tripwire intrusion rules. But I'm just going to choose the motion detection, enable the motion detection, and choose whenever do I want these alarms to pop in. I would want them only from 10 o'clock in the night until 4 o'clock in the morning. Then I could just go ahead and choose that one, manage my time template, weekdays, whichever I want to set up over here. So I can also choose which users should be notified, which users should be linked to. I could choose, do I want some specific PDZ to point in a specific direction? Since I've already set up some different presets, I'm just going to choose one of them from this camera, for instance. And this camera, by the way, could be a completely different camera located on another NVR or not even on an NVR, just by P2P connected to DSS. And then I could go ahead to link to video. I would like, whenever this happens, this motion detection triggers, I want this one, that one, and this one and that one to open up. And then I want it to not to be stored. If I had the storage on the server, I could choose to store these events immediately. Take a snapshot when the alarm is triggered. This also requires that I have the snapshot storage set up. From settings up in the NVR, what if I'm just getting a question? How does settings up in DSS and alarm differ from setting up in NVR? What if I have some alarms set up in the NVR and forth? These NVRs, these alarms that I'm setting up right now has nothing to do with the alarm settings that I have set up for the NVR. The only thing DSS Pro V8 is doing is it's actually listening to some of these alarms. So let's assume I'm configuring something for alarm input on an NVR or a PDZ camera, alarm input 1. If nothing is connected to alarm input 1, then obviously I'm never going to get an alarm, right? So, but if I have set up some time schedule for in the camera that whenever a alarm input 1 is triggered, then something should happen with the PDZ in itself, or some other camera should be recording in the NVR, then this does not apply to any of that. This is completely separated. So what I'm doing right now is I'm triggering the cameras to be moving and showing in my client right now, nothing else. So I hope it explains the difference. So when the alarm triggers, I want it to pop up in my client. Then I could choose which alarm output do I want to trigger. That could be some other place that I wanted to trigger, somewhere in Iceland. If I wanted to trigger a gate in Iceland when a person matches the face coming into our office, for instance. So emails, whoever should be notified by email when there's a motion detection. I wouldn't recommend it. This is just as an example, because we're going to have a lot of motion detection alarms. Link AC, if a specific door should open. That could be any person coming in and we want the door automatically to open up because this is a public place, for instance. Or link to a video wall if we have a video wall connected. So that's it. Now I've set up the complete alarm. Apply and click OK. Then I could go out and see the complete overview of one specific device's alarms. So I'm just gonna go and try to trigger that one. Give me a minute. So that's the way you could see, and it's also playing an audio file. I can just disconnect the audio. So then there I have it. This was what I chose, what was supposed to show up. I can click the management button. I can double click on the event. If I had snapshots connected, then I would be able to have a snapshot over here. I can get the live view. This is what my event consists of. My recording over here, if I had it recorded on the server side, and then the map part, where I can see which camera triggered this alarm. So I hope that's very simple for you guys to see. It's quite similar to what you're able to do from Smart PSS already or DSS Express, so it's not that different. So I can send an email to someone, I can add in a comment, because whenever somebody wants to search in the history of events, let's assume after 2 weeks to figure out what happened at that event, then they'd be able to see a comment, a remark from the guy who was actually confirming the alarm over here. And then we have it. There we see. So this is how the event center works. So this is a little bit complex to set up if you haven't tried it before, but just please go ahead and play around with it once you get the chance. So this was the event center. This is great for documentation if you want to make sure that people, you have complete proof of a specific event, of a specific person or a car driving into a barrier or something like that. You would be able to see that in the event center. So let's try to, before I continue on, I wanted to show you some of the highlight features. Object search. Since I don't have the snapshots enabled, it's a little bit hard for me to show you guys. But these are a couple of videos that are great to be able to show you how the object filtering works. So in this situation, we are searching for people. So we have a camera or an AI NVR that supports the metadata collection in terms of searching for the clothing color and stuff, recording and filtering the data. So now we found a specific person, for instance, and show you in a minute. And then, yeah, you can search directly from that person. This feature where you are searching for the metadata from one person, specific person, requires you to have an IVSS. So every person that matches these, this type of metadata, for instance, a pink shirt, blue pants, and glasses are going to show up in this search. Yes, there was a question from Magnus. Is it possible to enable an alarm whenever some device goes offline? Yes, it is possible. And you can get an email, yeah. So that was one of the highlights. Thumbnail search, I already went through it, but this is just an even better example. Sorry. This is even a better example of thumbnail search, how it works. There you can see there's a wallet over there. Does it answer your question, Magnus? Awesome. There you go. So it's that simple. Yeah, as it says, watch 20 seconds instead of 16 hours if you are looking for some specific event. And there you go. There you have it. So it's that easy. Or then you have the privacy masking, which is also a feature that is supported only in DSS v8. As long as you have a 7 series AI camera, which supports this privacy masking feature, because this is a feature that's inside the camera. So it has to be a 2 or 4 megapixel 7 series camera. Yeah, you can see how it works. So by default, everybody has a privacy masking on their body, so that makes it easier for us to do a search, and also make sure that people have the privacy masking on if it's sensitive situations, sensitive areas. So everything is by default has a privacy mask, and then you can remove them during the playback if you would like to, and then you can add them back again. So this is actually how it works. Let me just try to show you the let me just try to show you how it looks over here as well. Let's try to go to the playback of it, or the metadata search, for instance. I'm gonna choose the 7 series camera. Just gonna search for everything. So as I said, since I don't have any snapshots enabled, I can't see the picture of it, but it's capturing the metadata. Let's try to click this one and do the playback, because that playback recording is in the NVR. There you see. Then we could just right click and disable this masking. There we go. So if I want to do the backup of it, or if I just want to choose in here, and it's also gonna be asking me, do I want to have the privacy masking enabled or disabled once I do the backup? So this is a nice feature as well. Whatever did I want to show you guys? For instance, the this part was what I was keen to show you guys, the monitoring center. The monitoring center is more or less one view for everything. So what I can do here in my right side of it to the bottom, I can get the pane over here, which shows me all the different types of events. Then I can also go ahead and choose to see all of these cameras. I can choose that I wanted to have a map over here. I could even choose an access controller over here. Over here. So now I have a door. So whenever there are specific events triggering, then I can see them all the time over here. So I'm just There you go. You saw this part was from the access control, from our access control in the office. And I just want to show you guys how quickly, when I'm using an access control system with DSS Express, how quickly and easy it is to set up. I could go in here, I could do the playback directly, then I get the playback over here from that event. So this is the great feature from the monitoring sensor, that I get to do all the playbacks and everything directly from over here. Or over here. Then it's gonna do another playback, and I get the recordings over here. So it's that simple. All right. Let me show you this last configuration feature for access control, because we are using it in our office. We are using an ASI 7213X. If nobody has tried it, this is one of the greatest access control devices that I have tried, definitely. So I added the device just like I did before with all the other things. Ours is running with a vegan protocol, so we have a controller over in the server room which is actually triggering the relay. So we're not using the relay directly in the access control device in itself. So once I have the access control, I can create a door group, for instance. I can choose a storage room, and then I could choose whichever devices should be connected. This one is my face recognition terminal, and this one is my controller. So if I had multiple readers, I could just add them as to like this. Also choose in which time frame should this even be possible. So once I've done that, I have multiple different users in here. I have me and Edison right here. Then I can add these two specific users, or even over here, quick authorization. And I can choose these two people should also be allowed to have the access to storage room. Okay. So let me try to add a new person. Let me try to add one of my colleagues over here and see how that works for my access control device. So I'm gonna go to the personal and vehicle management. This is also where I add, I think some of you guys saw this from the ANPR workshop yesterday. Let me just try to, okay, I'm gonna do it afterwards. So I'm in here. I want to create, add a person. I'm gonna add here. I'm gonna give him an ID. And then I'm going to add his picture. This is my dear colleague Nikolai. Here we go. Once I've added him here, I can even just directly in here, since we are using vegan, we have to create a card for him. I'm just gonna create some random card. And after this part, I can add in license plates, fingerprints, a lot of different things, user code, multiple cards, so on and so on. Authorize, he should be allowed to get into our office. And then I'm gonna click OK. So that's it. So now my colleague is gonna go in here in the, he's gonna go to my access control device and trigger and see if it works. And I can even go to the access control type. Just a sec. Prøv at gå ind foran den. Super. Du kan lige prøve at gå derover igen lige om et øjeblik. Og så kan jeg lige prøve at lukke alle de her ned her. Prøv at gå derover igen. Lige prøv at se. There we have it. It's that simple to add a person to the access control module. So I hope you guys didn't blink, because that was quite simple and easy and quick to add a person to that access control device. And then we have all the log files, we have all the recordings, we can do remote verification, anti-passback, so on and so on. That's another topic. So that was the some of the highlights of the DSS V8. I have a overview over here that I'm gonna share with you guys. I'm gonna share that next week with all of you guys. We have all your emails, so that's gonna be very, very easy to share with you guys. As I said, I have a complete overview of this because this makes it much easier to decide and understand what do I need and what do I get. Let's go here. Yeah. All right. So over here, I can see the differences that when I'm using DSS Express, it does not support hot standby. So obviously, if I'm building a big system, I would love to have hot standby features so that I can, whenever there is a server that kind of crashes or something goes offline, then I can have some other idle server taking over the place. So this is super important that I have the hot standby feature if it's a bigger system. You could see that there is a lot of different features as well for and explanations of what you could get over here for free, servers per system, so on and so on. And also one of the limitations you could tell is stuff like the storage, the amount of storage you can add directly to the server. GIS map, you don't have the map feature in DSS Express, you have that only in Pro over here. And I could go on and go on. And over here, you can see the potential of how many cars, license plates, faces you can add. You can see there's all the way up to 30,000 in DSS Pro. So building bigger systems, no worries. We got you covered. We could cover up to 20,000 cameras in one system. So this one gives you an overview, and we're going to share that with you. I guess this is going to be very useful for you guys. So apart from that, it has one of these features called N+M. N+M is a feature, is kind of a failover feature where it actually takes over the place of some of those, servers that are those servers that are offline or something. We would have an idle server which would always just take over the task from that server that's offline. And this part is not anything that is license based, so that's free. In many other situations, you would have that license based as well. You have stuff like flow analysis in DSS Express, as I said, in DSS Pro, sorry. As I said, you have the possibility when you are using the flow analysis to know exactly how many people came in and went out from the location, and also being able to see them from each entrance as well, dividing them so we could see which entrance is being used most. You can see that all with the analysis in DSS Pro as well, and also over here. This part is actually from the BI module. So this is the licensing part. We went through many of the different functions. As I said, this is not the deepest webinar in terms of all the deeper functions you can have, but this gives you an overview and understanding, I hope, from what you're able to do with DSS Pro. So when we talk about DSS Express, the licensing structure and also for the DSS Pro is a little bit different from what it used to be. We have created some smaller licenses packages over here. But this is DSS Express 8, where you, for instance, pay for one license at the time. You could also choose to have the DAW licenses, video licenses, so on and so on. All of them can be bought individually here. Then you have the modules, the add-on modules. Let me show you some of the add-on modules. Just a sec. Down here, you have some add-on modules. These are the ones that you're paying for every time. So for instance, if you want to use the ANPR feature with DSS Pro or Express, then you'd have to buy the license for the entrance part of it. And then you get to add parking lots and get the ANPR features and so on and so on. So when we go to the Pro license, you have lots of different packages. You have 16 channel video license packages you can buy directly for the Pro. And then in the same way, you have a complete overview of the different licenses you can buy. So, and as you can see, business analysis module, you can buy separately, entrance module, you buy separately. So you don't have to afterwards compare to V7. V7, you had to buy an individual ANPR license. But with V8, you don't buy an individual ANPR license, you just buy a video license, and then you have the entrance module. That's it. You don't need anything more if you're using ANPR cameras, for instance. So you don't have the possibility to buy one license for an NVR and then add 20 channels. It's a license, video license per channel, and not by device in that sense. So, but everything is divided very simply here. I'm not going to explain everything to you guys. You can always have a look about it. Just a sec. So whenever you want to order this, type of license, so how do you go about it? It's quite simple. Oh. It's quite simple. The first you do is you order it from your distributor, whichever type of license you would like to have. Then you're going to be receiving a license like this in a PDF with a license key. The next thing is, once you want to add it, you get the possibility to add the license in the license part of the V8. Maybe I could just show you guys. Maybe it's a little bit easier. Over here, here's the license menu. This is where you activate your license. So once you're clicking that one, it asks you, do you just want to normally activate it, or are you upgrading from DSS Express? Once that's done, then it's going to ask you to add in the license key over here and then activate it. Then it's going to online activate. So one of the things that we changed from V7 is that once you, let's assume you buy 20 video licenses, all right? And let's assume the customer decides that he wants to have 5 more licenses or 100 more licenses. Then you just buy another additional license for those extended channels, like the 5 extra channels. And then you actually just click plus and add that license. So another beautiful part about the license structure, yeah, you could see it here. You can also do it offline. So then you just export a file from DSS, and then you send it to us, and we create the license file and send it back to you guys, and then you just import it, and that's it. So it's that simple. Another part that we changed, which is beautiful for the licenses, that you are able to deactivate them. So that means that now they're not going to be binding for that server only. You are able to deactivate it, switch the server if something is broken from the server, and then add the license to the new server. Or if you just want to change the server to some other server you want to get it to run, or if you're even just testing it on in your own office on your laptop and you want to change it, just deactivate, activate, and then it works. So this is one of the better features as well. So that was more or less what I had for you guys. So just got a question. So DSS could also be the way to go if we would like to get control over all our customers' NVR single cameras and do all kind of configuration, same as on site. Right now, as it is, all configuration in terms of setting up everything inside the NVR, that's not supported yet. But once we get a release version in March, April, let's have a look about it at that time. Then I'm going to do another webinar to confirm whatever they're going to be deciding, because everything is not completely done yet. So whenever we get those features, I'm going to address how do we configure as many things as possible from DSS in an NVR or in a camera. So that's going to be the next webinar once it's released. The pricings of the licenses, it's hard for me to tell because I don't have the exact pricing for them, but I can tell you one thing, that it's going to be super competitive. That's for sure. I'm not worried about that part. There's just a question if I can add an NVR into the DSS server if I only want to use the functions about the NVRs offline and online status with a message by email. No, it's not possible to just add it without any video channels. You're going to have to add at least one video channel. That's a minimum. I hope it explains it. If a DSS client reboots, can you do so it's automatically starting DSS up and opens in a specific split? From what I remember, yes, you can choose that it's going to be starting in a specific split. Yes, that's possible. Yes, it's possible, yeah. I'm just going to double check it, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be possible. I guess what you're saying is that it should be starting up in a specific split with predefined cameras already, or a map or whatsoever, and also on a separated screen, for instance, if you have multiple screens, right? I'm gonna do the test and let you guys know as well. Yeah. I'm gonna check it and let you guys know. So do you guys have any more questions or anything you didn't think I went through thoroughly? All right. Okay. So with no further ado, thank you guys. I think my time is up in like 2 minutes ago. So thank you guys. Since we started a little bit later, I think we are on schedule. So thank you guys all for paying attention, and I hope it was useful for you guys, and I hope you learned something, and it's much more structurized for you to understand what is DSS Pro, how can I use it, how do I sell it, and which features does it provide. And as I said, we are going to share all this information. We are going to send out some link for you guys in the middle of next week, I guess, when all our webinars are done, with some recordings of these webinars, PowerPoints, and also some of these tools like the table I showed you. So, but thank you guys for paying attention. It was great for me. I hope it was for you as well. And thanks for all the questions. So please scan the one in the middle where it's a feedback chart, where it gives me some feedback in terms of what could we do differently, what did we do well, what didn't we do well, so we can always enhance our training and make it better and better and improve it. So please scan the one in the middle and give us some feedback about it. On the left side, you have my LinkedIn account, and I think I forgot to add the Facebook page. If you're not already following us on Dahua Nordic News Facebook page, please do that. This is also where we inform you guys about all the new content, all the new devices that we have, new tests, and also events and trainings, webinars. A lot of these things are already posted on Facebook, so please follow us on Dahua Nordic News and scan the one in the middle, please. So, but thank you very much for paying attention, and thanks for all your time as well. So hope to see you at the next webinar on Monday if you are not already signed up and didn't join. It's going to be about AI. Thank you very much, Omar. Thank you much, Danny, as well. All of you guys, yeah, it's great. Glad you liked it.